So this next point on page 32, I'll just paraphrase it. He has a good half a paragraph on I think he's going through school right now, so he's not a professor yet, and taking various courses, and he thinks at this time that it's obvious to him that science and history and economics and psychology, they all are more practical and they're more in demand. But something like English literature, like who cares? He calls it it says here, I was far too naive, however, to have any real sense of how soft a subject literature was in comparison with sciences. I thought that was an interesting point because if we think about what knowledge do we value, we tend to value things, and we tend to value like what we put our money into. We tend to value things that we think make us safe or make our life more practical. But far little is put into ideas and the human condition. And yet, the self-help industry is huge. If you go to a used bookstore, every single one of them will have a huge section of mostly worthless books on self-help, and that's like weight loss or confidence in the workplace or Dr. Phil's books, and it's all kinds of that kind of junk. Nutrition books. There's tons of books on and not just bodily health, but also mental awareness and mindfulness and all this stuff. And of course, various like Eastern philosophies that Buddhism and etc. that have some secret ingredient to tap into your soul. But why can't this kind of knowledge that's being sought, why can't it be gotten from reading English literature and classics? I think it can be, but for some reason it isn't, and I wonder if the reason is because all of us have our heads clubbed going through public school, and we're all made to read books that either we hate or are above our heads. Like, for example, Shakespeare in high school, at least for me at the time, was just completely inaccessible. And I imagine that the kind of, I want to say trauma, that might be too strong, but let's go with it anyways. The kind of literate trauma or literature trauma that goes on in public schools, which is for most people, that's their common upbringing for education, the public schools. Maybe that mistreatment has demonized the classic literature of the public, the classic literature consumption of the public. That may be the reason. And here's a very good, I think, description of what English literature can do if you give it a chance. This is on page 33. So he says, a literary education was as broad as it was deep, forcing familiarity with chivalry and revolution, with gods and devils. And always you learned about, or better still, internalized these matters not through the abstractions of sociology or the large-scale events of history, but as they were experienced personally under intense pressure by human beings, fictional of course, yet still human and much like yourself.